The third album from the American-born teen actress turned singer Ariana Grande returns with an album that honestly puts me in a bit of a quandary. Grande has to a degree solidified herself as one of the young, upcoming solid pop artists who represents a wave of pop artists that are kind of a rare breed, an evolving young woman who's becoming increasingly more sexual in her music yet holds back enough to remain tasteful and classy. Her last album, By Everything, was by no means perfect, but it was a solid enough of a project and it produced some very enjoyable tunes. On her new project, she appears to have roughened her edges a bit more, recruited some more guest artists along the way, but in the process has taken some missteps in making this album. And after the release of that god-awful song Focus, I was rather skeptical going into this album, and unfortunately there are some problems found that I have some troubles accepting. The album opens up rather nicely on the track Moonlight, which comes off as a sweet, seductive piece where Grande romanticizes being in the company of her love interest. It's played both smooth and classy with its simple keyboard combined with picked synth strings, bass guitar and background harmonists. It's the only song of such nature and it's enjoyable. The lead-off single Dangerous Woman is next and the tone changes and becomes more fitting with the majority of this album. Here the appeal of Grande's flame and the fact that there's something about him, what exactly? Who knows, has altered her perspective and mindset, going from a sweet-natured demure little girl to a more assertive demanding woman. The picked electric guitar strings gives this track a sultry vibe, and when the drums come into play with the buzzing synth line, it brings the song together nicely. Be Alright in a nutshell is Grande reassuring her lover that even in their darkest times, everything's gonna be alright. And that's it. Honestly, it's rather basic in comparison to the first two songs and is kind of a letdown in terms of substantive lyrics. The track gives off a Caribbean style vibe in music with the fake steel drum in the intro, throwing in an electric drum beat, warbled backing vocals and breathed synth stabs. It's not terrible, but it certainly lacks driving energy. Into You falls in line with Dangerous Woman, minus the edge, enjoyable production and includes double negatives that appears in the bridge. With Grande falling so hard for some guy that all she wants is him to be inside her on a constant basis. It's not that blatant, but you can read between the lines. It's slightly one step up in the instrumentation from Be Alright, starting off with washed out electronic percussion before building up to a more livelier beat, but I'm not particularly head over heels with the constant murkiness of the whole thing. The album regains a few points with the song Greedy, where Grande outright admits that she's obsessed with some guy on a purely physical level and that all she wants is to ride the guy like a horse. Again, you gotta read between the lines, but that's the song in a nutshell. I just enjoy how brazen and upfront this song is. What helps is that Ariana shows some sort of enjoyment in her vocals unlike previous tracks. I do argue that she doesn't need any vocals over her voice, it can be somewhat distracting, but I do enjoy the horn section, the bass has a good groove and it's just an overall enjoyable track. Bad Decisions takes the squeaky clean good girl trying so desperately to be the quote bad bitch and that she'll gladly ignore all the signs that she shouldn't get with someone who's gonna fuck her around, but she doesn't give a shit. I've never gravitated towards these type of songs, so this one really gets my back up. Plus, Ariana trying to portray herself as a hood girl? Who are you trying to kid, Ariana? The beat's alright enough and it's just another percussion driven track that doesn't really accentuate any sort of melody at all. The final track on the album, Thinking About You, is the only track on the album which sees Grande pining for her fella since he currently isn't anywhere near her to give her some dick. It's a decent track that's pretty much paint by numbers in terms of subject matter and along with many double negatives, hooray! And comes complete with a washed out electronic drum beat, hints of piano, buzzing synths near the back half of the song. Although it's not entirely chilled, the overall presentation does have this relaxed aura to it and personally, it's an alright closer to the album. The remaining 4 tracks scattered on the album all have guest stars, the first being Nicki Minaj on the song Side to Side, claiming to have been here all night. Much like on Bad Decisions, she's more than happy to get with someone despite knowing full well from warnings that this person is bad news, but she doesn't care. So you know what, Ariana? I'll have no sympathy for you if this goes to shit. Nicki spouts some of her grade A nonsensical crap, referring to her vagina as gum and that she's the queen of rap. So yeah, Nicki's still as delusional as ever. Back is the Caribbean style instrumentation, which I personally don't derive any sort of joy from it. It's not expressive enough, it feels too basic, and the merger of synth drums and hip hop-esque elements are borderline boring. Then it's Lil Wayne's turn to appear on the song Let Me Love You, and unsurprisingly it's here where the album takes a huge plunge off the cliff. After only just breaking up with someone, Grande immediately finds herself in the grips of Lil Wayne. Excuse me while I go and vomit. Claiming to already have feelings for him despite knowing nothing about him and only recognising his existence for all of a second. And of course, Wayne is as gratuitous as ever, bragging about his dick, because, claims to be drowning in Grande's love juice, and that he's going to give Ariana amnesia. Sigh. The down-tempo keyboard is a snooze fest, the unnecessary slurred, altered vocal delivery from Grande is ugly, and the overall dark vibe over the song feels like someone's walking over my grave with every listen. Easily the worst track on the album. Thirdly is the song Leave Me Lonely, featuring a guest appearance from Macy Gray of all people. Christ knows where she's been over the last 15 years or so. After you realise that Macy's going to be left underused and wasted in the bridge, the song's subject is about Ariana letting someone go after constantly messing her around and she's had enough. Hang on a second. This guy fucks her around, and instead of saying fuck it like in 2 of the tracks she does on this album, she decides in this song to cut him loose? Do I detect inconsistencies? The song opens up on a quick string piece before the bass heavy piano chords enter, then enters the barely audible bass, with the drums coming in later on. It's pretty much another snooze fest if truth be told. And finally, the song Every Day has a guest appearance featuring Future, and quite surprisingly, it comes off as the best song with a guest feature. Yes, it's about Ariana missing her bloke who she wants to give it to her. Yes, it's repetitive, and yes, the bloke in question is a self-confessed bad guy, but it's the only edgy track that is listenable. Future's contribution is both competent and understandable, and Ariana, unlike other songs of the same nature, comes off as bearable. The trap style instrumentation with the grinding sound effects are a strangely welcoming presence, and everything just sounds like it fits. Personally, I don't think that this album is anywhere near as good as My Everything, and nothing on this album really strikes me as containing any smash hits. Hell, the titular track only reached number 17 in the UK, which isn't that great if truth be told. Also, considering the album's title, nothing here really screams dangerous. Ariana strikes me as someone who is far too restrained and in the midst of her attempts at being sultry to come off as dangerous. I just don't buy the facade. I don't think everything on this album is terrible, it just feels somewhat misguided. A decent enough of an attempt, but never hits the bullseye. Overall, I score this album a 65 out of 100.